Good afternoon, boys and girls. So how many of you have ever had to kill a zombie? Well, not too many.
Mayday, mayday, we're going down.
FIDO kicked ass. Like, it really kicked ass. I was hesitant to watching it for years, and I'm kind of upset with myself that I waited so long. It sat on my shelf for almost 2 years, untouched, until my wife forced me to watch it just the other night. And oh boy, yeah, it was worth it. The comedy kept me laughing, the social satire was admittedly a little bit ham-handed, but the performances were just well enough to keep me going the whole time. FIDO released in 2006, directed by Andrew Curry, or Curry, I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce it. In my experience, despite this film's generally high ratings, it's kind of obscure compared to other films of its ilk, such as Shaun of the Dead. Speaking of, while watching through, Shaun of the Dead came to mind many times. Only 2 years separated the release of these films, and a gut feeling tells me that some of the production choices in FIDO were influenced by the unexpected success of the admittedly better Zom-Com that came before it. However, I don't think that FIDO is just an American Shaun of the Dead. It's not. Shaun is, as I'm sure you all know, a typical romantic comedy set in the zombie apocalypse. In FIDO, the apocalypse has come and gone decades ago, and the zombies have long since been accepted into modern life. The undead are put to work as servants for the living, or as unpaid workers for menial tasks that the living don't want to do. This necrotic servitude is possible thanks to Zom-Con, a company that specializes in making some collars that will tame the zombie habits. This is summed up wonderfully with a black and white news broadcast at the beginning of the movie designed, I'm sure, to pay homage to Night of the Living Dead. And that's one thing that I like about the movie. It lets you know up front that it's just here to have a good time. Though it does try to make its audience think at times, it never does try to take itself or its message too seriously. Altogether, it's treated with a light-hearted touch that comes across to me as both silly and effective. The light-hearted nature of the movie is furthered by the highly colorful set design, the bouncy score, and a number of quirky characters. Altogether, if it weren't for a couple of moments of relatively tame gore, this movie would probably earn nothing higher than a PG-13 rating, although it did receive an R. Hell, if I saw this as a 10-year-old, I would probably have loved it. Now, the actual plot of FIDO revolves around Timmy Robinson, a typical 1950s kid who faces typical 1950s problems. Bullies at school, parents that don't listen or understand him, and nobody to play baseball with. This all changes when his mother, against his father's wishes, purchases a zombie to have around the house. Timmy, who is at first hesitant, befriends the zombie and names him FIDO. But things go wrong when FIDO's domestication collar malfunctions just barely long enough that he eats one of the neighbors. But the collar reactivates before FIDO eats anyone else. They leave, and Timmy returns later with a shovel to kill and bury the body, but not before the undead neighbor bites another person, ensuing some hilarity and the zombie virus. Out of many memorable characters, my personal favorite was Timmy's neighbor, Mr. Theopolis, played by Tim Blake Nelson. Nelson seems to have quite the filmography, but I have seen very few of his other roles. Here, he felt like a little bit of a toned-down Hunter S. Thompson. At the very least, he looked like it. Despite his character being scummy, he did turn out to be a good guy. He's the one that my mind jumps to when I think back on the film. He gave a great performance here. Carrie-Anne Moss played Timmy's mother, and Dylan Baker played his father. They worked well together in their scenes and brought a pretty fun light to their characters. Baker made me dislike his character that he played, but in a good way, up until the very end of the film when he shows that he does love his kid, even if Mr. Robinson is terrible at showing it most, nay, all of the time. With the quirkiness of his character, though, it does make me wonder how he managed to land a wife in the first place, but, well, I mean, this was the 1950s, so I guess it was a bit of a different time. Miss Robinson is a stereotypical wife of the 1950s, just as much as everything is stereotypical 1950s, until we find out that she is falling in love with the family zombie. This drives her actions throughout the rest of the film, everything from the choices that she makes in her deteriorating marriage to how she deals with her son's bullies. I quite liked Moss's performance. The last character that I want to mention is the titular FIDO, played by Billy Connolly. Zombies don't exactly have a lot of character in most films. By their nature, they really can't have much of a personality, but Fido somewhat breaks the rule. Zombies are zombies in this film, but given that they are domesticated, this allows for some expansion on the eponymous monster. Altogether, Fido was a very fun film. I can understand why this wouldn't be some people's cup of tea, but it worked just fine for me. It's fairly cheesy, but still heartfelt. Nothing felt particularly forced, and it never took itself so seriously that I couldn't look past its few flaws. After stewing on it, I think I'd give this one probably a heavy B+, something like an 89 out of 100. Would I rewatch this one? Hell yes, and I would suggest that you give it a watch too. I think it is a sorely underrated film. If you have seen it, what do you think? Do you like it or not? How unethical is Mr. Theopolis's behavior? Let me know. I'm Damian Foreman, by the way. I write books. My horror novel, The Circus, An American Fantasy, and my collection of short fiction, Portraits in Bloodlines, with my father, Rick Foreman, are available for purchase online. I'll be completely honest, the only reason I'm doing this YouTube thing in the first place is to try and spread words about my books. I love talking about movies, books, art, everything else like that in general, but what I like more is sitting and writing books. If you're curious at all about my work, please check the description. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you all next time.
Mayday, mayday, we're going down.
Given their domesticated... God damn it. Horror novel, everything from her choices that she makes... Fucking goddamn it.